Today's video is sponsored by PCBWay. So I've just got some images that I want to test out on some different types of filament. The one on the plate right now is Elegoo's Blue PLA, and I also have some of Sunlu's Matte PETG that we're going to be trying out, amongst other things. I've got the fume extractor from WeCreate. If you haven't seen this video, be sure to check it out. I'll have it linked down in the description below. They sent over this fume extractor along with their 40-watt Vision laser engraver. So if you're interested in laser engraving like I am, amongst other things, I'm kind of into it all, check out that video, linked down in the description below. So what I have in mind for today, this is a picture that I took a couple years ago of a buddy of mine's house and turned it into an image that can be laser engraved. It's a little bit smushed in this direction, so it will fit on this little test card that I'm using right now, but don't worry, we're going to put this in full size on a piece of slate as well. This is telling me it's going to take 13 minutes to engrave this entire thing. I have no idea how this is going to come out, so you're going to be just as surprised as I am. Before I do this, though, I need to turn this guy on. I've only got it set to 50% power right now. If I turn it up any higher than that without connecting the hose to a jig or some sort of attachment for the laser, well, I'll just show you. Let's turn it up to 100. It's powerful. I'm going to leave it at 50% power for this test. I don't think we really need anything more for the amount of material that we're going to be removing. There's nothing to it but to do it. This first layer here, I don't expect to see much of anything. That's why we have it set up to do a couple different passes in a few different directions. You can start to see some of it coming through here on the second pass. As you can see, the blue has a pretty rough time with engraving, especially with flood fill. I think if we had done this without flood fill on, we may have gotten a bit of a different result. Just for comparison, I'm going to throw one of my Matte PETG test cards. This is the Sunlu Matte PETG in red. I'm going to throw that on there, and we're going to run the exact same image. I've got this set up to flood fill as well. That is not what I normally use with this material, but I want to see how it works using the flood fill application. And we'll let this thing run. What a difference. What a difference. It's not perfect, but when we compare it to the blue, there is clearly a clear winner. If you're into 3D printing, CNC machining, or electronics, why deal with multiple companies for different services? PCBWay.com offers high-quality 3D printing, CNC machining, and even PCB manufacturing and assembly, all in one place. Whether you need custom 3D printed parts, machined components, or a full electronics production, their fast turnaround times and competitive pricing make it super easy. Simplify your workflow today and get everything done in one order at PCBWay.com. All right, we've got it centered. I've got my profile set up for the slate. I'm going to run the exact same image, except obviously it's going to be wider. Man, I love Slate. That came out so clean. Just for a comparison, Slate's probably my favorite thing to engrave. The other cool thing about laser engraving is the flexibility. I've got just a standard SVG of this pup here, turned on its side. Now you could take this image similar to what I just did with this here, because this was just a regular photo that I took and converted it to an engravable file. I'm just going to throw this guy on here, same settings as before, and see how it comes out. Not too shabby. Holy moly, that's quick. Done. Man, this thing is so cool. Now, if you were going to sell these, you would need to have a license agreement with the United States Marine Corps. However, just for testing purposes, that looks freaking awesome. And if you're wondering why the slate is all broken up like this, it's because I can't find the slate cutter. So I'm breaking it apart by hitting it with a mallet. This one's pretty cool. It's a little nature scene with a bear, mountains in the background. Well, you have eyes. You can see what it is. Says it's going to take about 1 minute and 14 seconds. That was not 1 minute and 14 seconds, more like 40 seconds. If you're a fan of the 3D printing content as well, you would have remembered the video a couple days ago where we printed out some of the test pieces out of Sunlu's matte PETG. This is the Overture, and this was Bamboo's PETG HF. This is just a little epoxy resin container. Mix your epoxy up so it does not get all over the place. We stuck this thing together. Anyway, if you're interested in that, I'll link it down in the description below so you can go check that video out where we printed all this stuff. But what I want to do is engrave the bottom up. It's going to raise the head all the way up. And we should be good to go. So I'm just going to engrave the words epoxy trace right onto the bottom of this. Nothing fancy. Is that Comic Sans? It is Comic Sans. Comic Sans. That's better. That took all of about 15 seconds, if that. One thing that's really cool about a fiber laser that you can't do with a traditional CO2 or diode laser is I'm able to focus into a spot on the inside of our piece. It does not need to sit on top of the material. So we should be good now to move this guy into place. Obviously, any areas that are the wall is going to not help us. So we have to shrink our design down to fit inside of there. But let's see what that looks like. So I've just got the word trays populated into there. And maybe without interrupting the frame, you can see it fills the inside of there without going over the edge. I don't know how well you're going to be able to see this engraved, but here goes nothing. That's done. There we go. On the inside of our part. That's one really cool thing about these fiber lasers is your ability to engrave pretty much anywhere. One thing I haven't tested out on this Monport that is different from pretty much every other fiber laser out there is this whole head rotates. So if whatever I'm engraving doesn't fit underneath the laser, being on top of this plate, that whole head can rotate to the side, and I can set whatever I'm engraving to the right side of this machine. And I pretty much have an unlimited height as long as I'm able to fit whatever it is underneath here. If I had to do, say, the top of a suitcase, obviously that wouldn't fit on the counter, so I could rotate this whole machine to the left and then turn this head to the right and engrave right over the floor. It's a really cool feature about this specific fiber laser, or this series of fiber lasers anyway, from Monport. One thing I've been curious about ever since I got my CO2 laser was engraving on glass. That was something I wasn't able to do without a marking spray on a CO2 or diode laser. And what surprised me the most right off the bat with this is I pressed autofocus and it was able to focus even with the glass in place. So even though that beam looks like it's sitting on the surface of the laser, according to my measurements, we're right at that 325 mark. So that was really cool. I did not think that was going to be able to focus onto a piece of glass. Now, with this being a piece of glass, my fear is that anything I do, as you can see, it's going through the little holes on the plate there. Anything I do is going to go through the glass and into the surface of our laser. Something tells me a piece of wood isn't the right answer, but that's what I have right now, so that's what I'm going to try. From all of my tests, this fiber laser won't engrave wood anyways. In fact, even bumping it up to like 80 or 90% power, it didn't want to engrave wood, so we will see. Do not know if it's even possible without a marking spray. I'm going to try it with my Slate settings just because those are fairly conservative in terms of the amount of passes that it's going to take. But again, I have no idea how this is going to work. So what I'm going to do now is run a material test in Lightburn. If you're not familiar with how to get there, you go to Laser Tools, Material Test, and it will populate with this. I can't guarantee these are going to be the right ones, but this is just what I'm starting with. And we can hit frame. We're going to go from 50 Q-pulse up to 400 and see what happens. So I can tell you right now, all it's doing is engraving the wood underneath it. So that was interesting. It engraved the wood underneath it, but it also took chunks out of the glass. I kind of was expecting that, but I wasn't expecting this. Let's try with a marking spray. So what I'm going to be using today is cold galvanizing compound from Rust-Oleum. Had good luck with this with the CO2 on glass, so curious to see how it works with the fiber. And we'll let that dry. This fume extractor might be a little bit noisy, but this is all dry. So I'm going to run our test on it now, and we shall see if we get any sort of result on glass aside from eating into our laser bit. I can't say I didn't expect that to happen. Oh well. We did get some results on this, though. Looks like maybe a Q-pulse of 50 with a frequency of about 10. So those were the speed and power settings I was using. But we are going to use a Q-pulse of 50 and a frequency of 10. So theoretically speaking, this shouldn't eat through the material. This should just do a light engraving. All right, well, we tried. That was our little test spot there. You can sort of see their mark in the glass, but as far as our little army test there, that would be a no-go. So I'm going to have to spend a little bit more time playing around with this, maybe get some actual marking spray and see if that makes a difference. But at least we know right off the bat, you cannot engrave glass, but it will engrave your build plate. It looks really good though. Since we're here, I printed out a few different test cards out of Sunlu's matte PETG. This is obviously orange. I'm going to try a few different passes. One is going to be with monotonic as the top layer. And we'll flip it over or use a different one and see how it engraves on build plate surface. And we'll do the same thing again, except this top is Hilbert curve. You can see the top layer pattern there looks a little different than normal. So I'm kind of curious to see if there's any difference between the surface that was on the bed, monotonic, and then Hilbert curve. We're going to start with monotonic. And in case you're wondering, yes, I did get new lights. Thank you to my buddy Zero for recommending these. So it is a little brighter over here. Maybe you'll be able to see a little more. Or maybe you'll see less, depending on how this engraves. I'm going to start with the same settings that I use for the red PETG. Might be easier to see that laser there without the light. See what I was saying? You might or might not be able to see it with the light. I'll pull the light back just a little bit so you can kind of see the outline there. I've already got it zeroed into where it needs to be. I'm going to turn our exhaust fan on and we'll hit go. Didn't come out half bad though. I think it moved a little bit as it started to engrave, or the fan kicked on, so it lifted this piece up. So that's why it's not really lined up. Next, I guess we'll try the same thing with Hilbert curve. This time I'm going to do 3 passes instead of 4. So technically it's going to do 6 passes. Probably could have even gotten away with 2 passes. Oh, most definitely could have gotten away with 2. So there's Hilbert curve and there's monotonic. Now, obviously the monotonic probably looks a little better just because there isn't those little divots there. All right, we can try it on the build plate now. Build plate side. Probably could have gotten away with 1 more on that guy. But overall, looks like the orange is going to engrave pretty good. The only thing I'm noticing about some of this Sunlu, like I mentioned in a previous video where we tested the Sunlu PETG, is it's pretty translucent. This is 0.8 millimeters, so just under 1 millimeter. There's no sparse infill. It's all just solid in there. You can see through it. I mean, you can see on the one we haven't engraved, my fingers are coming through it. And that's a solid piece. I'm curious why it's so translucent, but it does engrave nice. And then back when I had my laser engraving business, I had a bunch of these on hand. I've got just a few left, but curious to see if this is going to engrave the same as those aluminum business cards. Because really, it's just a coating over the top of it. So let's focus on this guy. Let's try our settings for the aluminum business cards first. Scale this guy up a little bit. Kind of jog it down to get it centered. That looks all right. That didn't work as planned. Kind of just bubbled up on the plastic there. I'm going to run it again using a different setting that I use for the tumblers and see if that makes any difference. One would think the goal here is to eliminate the coating, so you'd want to hit it with a higher power. It does seem to be working. Well, it's closer. Boy, that's warm. All we're really looking to do is get down to the stainless steel underneath. Turn it up to 60%. I'm going to turn on flood fill. And this will be our last go at this because I don't think we're going to see results that are much different if we keep trying on it. Well, we tried. That honestly looks like garbage. Perhaps that's why JDS Industries got rid of these. And I've got one last thing I want to try today, and that is a leash. I'm just going to kind of set that there. Doing the same settings for this that I would use on black PLA. Well, that's quick. What does 2 more passes do? Right, basically nothing. Doesn't take long at all. Let's try it on the handle. Line it up like that. Nothing too fancy. Super quick. Took all of 2 seconds. So there's another idea for you. Custom dog leashes. Well, I think that's where I'm going to call it for today. If you enjoyed today's video, be sure to give it a thumbs up so YouTube knows you enjoy this type of content. And if you want to see more laser and 3D printing stuff in the future, hit that subscribe button down below so you don't miss out on the next upload. I want to say thank you again to our sponsor, PCBWay. If you're interested in having some electronics done or custom CNC machining, or even high temperature 3D printing, be sure to check them out in the link in the description below. I will see you all in the next video, folks. Take care, and I hope you have a great and successful day.